All right, let's jump right into something that's honestly been shaking up the geopolitical world. In today's Explainer, we're diving deep into a grave, incredibly complex issue that has left a whole nation stunned. We're talking about the 8 former Indian Navy officers who were abruptly sentenced to death in Qatar. This isn't just a standard legal case. It's a massive vortex of international diplomacy, highly secret naval deals, and the always complicated geopolitics of the Middle East. If you follow international affairs, this is absolutely crucial to understand.
Think about this absolutely staggering contrast for a second. Back in 2019, one of these officers, Commander Pernindu Tiwari, was literally awarded the Pravasi Bhartiya Samman by the President of India. That's a huge deal. It's an award given to people who bring real glory to India abroad. Fast forward to 2023, and that exact same celebrated officer, along with 7 of his colleagues, is suddenly facing a death sentence in Qatar. How on earth does someone go from being a decorated, celebrated ex-serviceman straight to death row?
Well, we are going to decode this entire mystery step by step. We'll start with the shocking death sentence itself, then look at Qatar's quest for security, dive into the highly secret submarine deal, unpack the arrests and secret trials, and finally look at India's very real diplomatic dilemma. Let's get into it.
Part 1. A shocking death sentence. The unprecedented October 2023 verdict.
So, out of nowhere, on October 26, 2023, a court in Qatar sentenced 8 decorated former Indian Navy officers to death. And these guys were working for a private firm at the time. We're not talking about ordinary recruits here. We're talking about directors and actual gold medalists. But the wildest part? The trial was so incredibly secretive that neither the Indian public nor the diplomatic corps had any real clue what was coming. The news dropped and it literally left the entire country in a state of shock. Now, you're probably wondering, what were highly trained Indian Navy officers doing working for some private company in Qatar in the first place?
That brings us to Part 2, Qatar's quest for security, from pearl diving to outsourcing defense.
To really get this, we have to rewind a bit. There was a time when Qatar was essentially a poor British protectorate, right? People made their living through pearl diving and fishing. But in 1939, oil was discovered and everything changed. Then, in 1971, the same year the British left, they found these massive natural gas reserves in the Persian Gulf. Almost overnight, Qatar became one of the wealthiest countries on the planet. Fast forward to 2014, and a defense consultancy named Daira Global is founded, which is the exact company at the center of this whole mess.
But here is the catch, and it's a big one. Qatar's total population is just 2.6 million. That's like the size of a single mid-sized city in a lot of countries. And out of that 2.6 million, the actual native citizens only make up about 300,000. So put that into perspective. You have immense, staggering wealth, vast gas fields to protect, but literally not enough citizens to form a massive military. This forced Qatar to outsource its security to foreign nations like the US and to private defense contractors.
Enter Daira Global Technologies. This was a private defense company started by a retired Omani Air Force officer. Qatar hired them to train its Navy and handle equipment maintenance. To do this, Daira Global recruited experts from all over, including over 75 retired officers from the Indian Navy. And by all accounts, our A officers did fantastic work. The Qatari government was apparently thrilled with them. Everything was going perfectly fine until 2020, when a massive deal went down that changed the entire playing field.
Which leads us right into Part 3, the secret submarine deal. Italy, Qatar, and the stealth leak.
Okay, so Qatar wanted to seriously multiply its naval strength in the Persian Gulf. To pull this off, they struck a highly classified deal with the famous Italian shipbuilding firm Fincantieri to buy Italian U-212 stealth submarines. Now, what makes these subs such a game-changer is their use of something called metamaterials. This is super advanced tech designed to completely trick radar and sonar. It basically makes the submarine invisible underwater. And crucially, our Indian officers had knowledge of this project.
So why was this deal kept under such intense lock and key? Well, it's a classic geopolitical puzzle. First off, Israel. Israel historically pushes hard to ensure no Arab nation in the Middle East gets military attack that outpaces its own. If they knew about the stealth subs, they likely would have blocked the whole deal. Second, Pakistan. Even though Qatar and Pakistan are friendly, Qatar absolutely did not want this top-tier stealth technology falling into Pakistani hands or having their agencies potentially copy it.
And boom, this is exactly where the grave allegations kick in. According to local Middle Eastern media, Qatari intelligence claimed these 8 Indian officers were sharing confidential information about those metamaterials and stealth subs with Israel, allegedly over electronic communications.
Now, we need to be absolutely clear here. Neither the Indian government nor Israel has ever confirmed a single one of these claims. But to Qatari authorities, this was viewed as a devastating case of espionage.
Part 4. Arrests and Secret Trials, the Murky Legal Timeline.
The way this unfolded is honestly chilling. Just past midnight on August 30th, 2022, Qatari intelligence essentially raided the homes of these officers and took them away, supposedly for a naval exercise. For a whole month, nobody, not even the Indian embassy, knew where they were. It wasn't until October that consular access was finally granted. Then, highly secret charges were officially filed in March 2023, and finally, in October 2023, without a shred of public evidence being released, they were slapped with a death penalty verdict.
The level of secrecy here was just off the charts. It wasn't just a trial, it was a completely locked-down process. The officers were thrown right into solitary confinement for months. The trials at the court of first instance were incredibly restricted, literally just the prosecution, the defense, and 2 witnesses allowed in the room. Reportedly, even the defense attorneys couldn't get their hands on all the documents. And to top it all off, the Dara Global website was totally scrubbed from the internet, and over 75 Indian employees were fired overnight. It was an impenetrable wall of silence.
This brings us to our final chapter, Part 5, India's Diplomatic Dilemma, Balancing Power and Leverage.
On paper, if you just look at military might and sheer population size, India obviously has a massive advantage over Qatar. But, as we know, international relations aren't just a game of who has the bigger army. Look at the economics. India exports about $1.97 billion to Qatar, but in return, we buy nearly $17 billion worth of natural gas, LNG and LPG from them. Our critical energy grid relies heavily on Qatar, plus Qatar hosts over 700,000 Indian workers. That is incredible economic leverage.
And make no mistake, Qatar knows exactly how to use that leverage. You might recall the Nupur Sharma controversy recently. Qatar was one of the very first to demand a public apology from India. Or think back to the FIFA World Cup with the Zakir Naik situation, where Qatar pretty much just brushed aside Indian diplomatic pressure. The takeaway here is that Qatar is firmly established and doesn't just fold when another country pushes back. So, what on earth can India actually do to save these highly decorated veterans? Well, there are a few lifelines left. First is the legal route, pushing appeals up through Qatar's higher court and the Court of Cassation. Second, the diplomatic heavy hitter, Prime Minister Modi directly intervening for a pardon. December 18th is Qatar National Day, and the Emir often pardons prisoners then, so that's a huge ray of hope. Third, they could invoke the 2015 pact between India and Qatar, which allows prisoners to be transferred to serve their time back in India. And the absolute last resort, trying to get the International Court of Justice involved. At the end of the day, this whole situation is so much bigger than just 8 men. It is a masterclass in global power dynamics. And it leaves us all with one incredibly tough question. How does India balance its massive, critical energy dependence on Qatar, gas that literally keeps the Indian economy running, with the lives of its own highly decorated veterans who gave their lives to serve the country? It's a wildly delicate diplomatic tightrope. Well, that is it for today's Explainer. I really hope this helped untangle the web of this geopolitical mystery for you. Keep learning, stay curious, and we'll catch you next time.